So I thought this would be good to do because there's just so much going on right now. And in terms of how our business is changing in relationship to COVID and all of the interesting things you have to deal with in terms of manufacturing.
And the interesting metric is typically over the many, many years that I've been here, we would normally have 20 or 30 back orders that we were dealing with at any one time. But because COVID has so decimated the workforce in the factories, and because thus the factories are having so much trouble producing and delivering product, right now we have over 300 back orders. And that's what we're up against. And that's, when you're online, that makes things pretty difficult. When you have that many back orders and you have to keep telling people, updating when you expect delivery, and the factories give you information that's not always accurate. And so that is very much complicates what we do.
Right. And I mean, we tend to deal with smaller U.S. Manufacturers, and so as a manufacturer, you place bets on demand. You don't want to make too much of something, you don't want to make too little, and you kind of gauge what the history of your company tells you in terms of what you need to be making. And what's happened with COVID is that there have just been huge spikes in demand in places that really have never existed before. Like for instance, I went out with my girlfriend to buy a kayak in March when this thing first started, and every single kayak in Kansas City had been sold. Because again, people were thinking, the only safe places is to go outside, so I'm buying a kayak and I'm going to spend a bunch of time outside. And that same type of thing has been happening to us with council tool axes. Apparently everybody wants an axe, and them being a small manufacturer, it's hard for them to deal with those spikes in demand, especially when there's just this long sustained spike.
Yeah, and they did not anticipate the demand for axes over the holiday season, and so that got them way behind. Right. And then it just escalated. And then our problem is that when we advertise this product, and people look on our website, and a lot of times they'll see that we're offering it. A lot of times they'll look at our inventory and they'll say, oh, they've got 36 of them. Well, if they look carefully, they'd see it was minus 36 because we got so many back orders for some of these things.
Right. And also our inventory, just the nature of us being a liquidator and having a bunch of stuff coming in and out of here, our inventory is not the most accurate.
Right.
And
yet.
So, we're getting there. But if you're really concerned about whether we have something in stock, it's always a good idea to call.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've been very lucky. We've hired 4 people since COVID started.
That's right.
Just because of...
Normally we hire somebody about once every 25 years.
Right. Yeah. So I mean,
so the guy we hired in June has seniority over 3 people already.
That's right. So yeah, I mean that's a great place to be. It's been a lot to keep up with. And we're just, we're busier than ever.
Busy?
I guess, yeah. Part of being busy is just some of the deals we've been buying. Do you want to go talk about the Crescent deal?
Yeah. So what happened is in March, the principal manufacturer of adjustable wrenches in the United States, called Western Forge, they closed down, and leaving only Crescent as the only manufacturer of American-made adjustable wrenches to our knowledge. And then about in April, Crescent decided they weren't going to make them here anymore. And instead, they just moved all of their production to China. And because they're a giant corporation, they didn't want to mix the American-made adjustables with the Chinese adjustables. So they ended up getting them to us. So we've got them all now. There's like 27,000 adjustable wrenches. The last, to our knowledge, at the moment anyway, the last of the American-made adjustable wrenches, they're all here. So,
and it is still possible that Western Forge could be consolidated within SK somehow, and that they do have future plans of making adjustables, but it seems far into the future at this point.
Yeah, I think that they were just going to take some of the equipment at Western Forge and send it to the SK factory. Was my sense of what they were planning.
Right.
But I think that's far in the future. Now that SK is up for sale, who knows what's going to happen with that?
Right. And then we are working on a surplus deal.
Very exciting surplus deal.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, so there's this company that made kits for the government out on the East Coast. And, they'd have these contracts to supply the Forestry Service or the military for a year or 5 years or whatever. And so they would keep the merchandise coming to make these kits. But invariably, when the contract would end, they would have excess merchandise that, since they only sold to the government, since they didn't have the contract, they could never sell it. And so it would just sit on their shelves. And so this went on for 50 years or 70 years. And they just accumulated all this merchandise, a lot of it that's not even made anymore. Nicholson files, for American-made Nicholson files, for example. Anyway, they've got this stuff. And so we're in the process of negotiating a deal to get it here. And it looks like it's going to happen. And in fact, the first shipment should be later this week if we swing things right. That's real exciting.
Yes.
It's when you get stuff that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, that plays well on the internet.
Yeah. Well, that's all I had. Did you have anything you want to talk about?
No, but I thought it was important for people, to understand, not what just we're going through, but pretty much probably every online seller is going through in terms of the difficulty of getting product.
Right.
Normally factories would ship in a week or two. Now some of them are. The other day I had a company tell me that it was going to be 5 months before they could ship us.
A lot of times we try to get people their information as quickly as possible, and we do that just by calling up the manufacturer and saying, hey, when can we expect our shipment? And these days, it's not uncommon to get just kind of a shrug of the shoulders and be like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And so that just makes it particularly difficult to obviously let customers know any sort of timeline of when things can be available. It's not all like that. Like Occidental got hit pretty hard because they went through 2 COVID things, and then they went through the California wildfires. So it took 5 or 6 months to get an order from them. And Council Tool's been hit pretty hard. It's Midwest. Seems like they're having some trouble. Wildy's having some trouble.
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
You can almost say Norseman and Wright have been reasonably unscathed. I can't think of anybody else.
Yeah, SK's gotten better.
They're still way behind.
Okay.
Now, if we have 300 back orders, I bet 200 of them are SK or yeah,
probably.
And that's another thing is we're a fairly small company, and then when you have 25 or 30 back orders a day, that you have to contact the people and contact the factories to find out where they're going to get ready. And we're small staffed. It gets kind of overwhelming just dealing with all the customer service things that you need to do.
Yeah.
So our apologies if we've been a little slow lately.
Right. Not to mention when you're buying deals that are 30 pallets of adjustable wrenches and 40 pallets of weird government surplus. Anyway, well, thanks for doing this.
Okay.